Yes. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining the show. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever it is. I know we have people watching from all different time zones. Thank you for being here with us and thank you for joining the show. In this episode, we're going to be discussing, you're familiar with chutes and ladders. We're going to be talking about sheaths and leakers, barcodes, blood evidence. Turvey explains a lot, especially with the barcodes. I'm glad that he cleared that up. Um, but exposes evidence about the sheath that, we didn't know, especially when it comes to the blood on the blankets and the blood or lack thereof on the sheath. Very interesting words, what he has to say. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with Donna Rutono, but she had Brent Turvey on today, and he even discussed the response that Ann Taylor gave him after Christopher Whitcomb's book came out. So we'll be talking about that. Also, the leakers. We heard the last week or so that the investigation into the leakers is still ongoing. That's good news to hear. I totally forgot about it after all this time. But I've sat back and I've wondered, like, why would people think that the defense had anything to do with these leaks? Because if we're watching, the Dateline doc, we're watching, these other streaming services documentaries, Amazon, all these different ones, and they were all showing and painting a picture of guilt before the trial. That's why there was this big hoopla about it. So I've kind of sat back and kind of went, why would people think the defense has anything to do with it, right? Now, when it comes to this book, I mean, it said a lot. Shout out Rosie. She did an amazing breakdown with the book, her little PowerPoint slideshow, breaking down all the chapters in one episode. And, there was a lot of stuff that came out in that book, but at the same time, it was a lot of limited evidence being looked at, a lot of opinions. But when it comes to some of the stuff that Turvey's been saying now, man, especially about this sheath, right? And we've always said this whole time, all of us that have been there from the beginning, we've said this whole time, if you don't have the sheath, then there's no PCA, there's no arrest, there's no, you know what I'm saying? Especially when there was other evidence that was not tested, even the hair that was in Ethan's hand. And I want to bring up one more thing before we get this thing going. I've always, this whole time, ever since Ann Taylor showed up the morning that Brian Koberger was arrested, that morning she showed up and shut that cleaning crew down at 1122 King Road. And I said that day, holy hell, this lady ain't playing. And if I would ever want a public defender, I would want her defending me, because look, Brian Koberger wasn't even in Idaho custody. He was on the East Coast. Idaho's on the West Coast. And he wasn't even near the state of Idaho. And yet Ann Taylor had that cleaning crew shut down. Also, Ann Taylor made sure that certain evidence that was going to get demolished with the house, she made sure that they held some of it, specifically the bed frame that has hair on it that was never tested. This whole time, I've always praised and lifted up Ann Taylor, defended her at the very most. And it's kind of weird because today, May 14th, 2026, I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm going, I have to ask, for the first time ever, did Brian Koberger take the plea deal because he knew that Ann Taylor, AT, was preventing evidence from being tested or even brought into the trial? The stuff that Turvey says is very damning to Ann Taylor. And so I've sat back and I'm going, okay, I've defended her all these years, stuck up for her every single time. But when I hear that she didn't even care to have the frickin' hair in Ethan's hand, the hair on Ethan's bed rail, she didn't even care to have it tested? So, May 14th, 2026, today, I sat there and I went, maybe that's why he took the plea. I've been asking this whole time since last July, why in the hell do you take this plea when you have this amazing chance to walk away? How do you take this plea? How do you take the plea that you took? No appeal, no parole. How do you plead to that? 4 days, we hear stuff with Christopher Whitcomb's book. 4 days before the plea takes place, they're discussing chain of custody issues. About the piece of evidence, which is why their client exists in that courtroom and that jail cell, period. Because without it, you wouldn't have nothing. We've all said that. So I'm literally asking myself, for the first time ever, was she really not trying to defend her client to the best of her ability? And that's weird for me to say. And then at the same time, the whole time I've been asking myself, why would you take that plea? And then today I'm like, well, shoot. If I knew that certain things weren't being tested, I'd still roll the dice. But anyway, that's me. Because I got 27 years in Idaho until they execute me if I go to death row. All right? 27 years. I got time. But man, somebody that, doesn't have confidence, somebody that has internal demons, whatever, maybe that's why. I don't know. So please hit the like if you haven't yet. Subscribe if you're not. Share this out to your socials and friends. Let me know in the comment section what you think about everything I brought up. We're going to discuss it even more. We're going to get into some of these interviews and such. And thank you all for being here. And we're going to get this show started. All right. So let's go ahead and get the comments up here. Give me 1 second. We'll get those turned on. Thank you all for being here this evening. And wait till you hear what Turvey has to say on Crime and Justice with Donna Rutono. Thank you, Caddy. If you don't know who she is, because you might not, only 3,000 subs, but you're definitely going to enjoy this one. Shout out to her. Doing an amazing job. Discussing other cases too. Got Scott Peterson, Murdaugh. We're going to be talking some Murdaugh coming up here in the near future. Stephen Smith, Micah Miller, and get back to David and some more Idaho 4 coming up here in the next week. What's up, Kid Kitty? Yes, baby angel's out here running around somewhere. we got her own neon. If anybody doesn't know what that is, that's baby angel. Baby angel neon. We've had that for a long time. Shout out baby angel. If you remember when she was just a kitty when we first rescued her, she was only days, weeks old. When we had that camera set up for baby angel, anybody remembers the camera set up for baby angel, because I had to watch her while we were doing shows, had to make sure everything was okay. You all wanted to see her too. And that was that neon that was hanging in the back of her little cage. We've had that baby angel neon ever since she was a little baby angel. What's up, Yoli? Thank you for hopping in. What's up, Strong Pro? Yeah, you're more than welcome to share it out. Please do. Please do. What's up, Moto? Long time no see. What's up, man? What's up, Caddy? Thank you for the ticket too. Jay Gallagher, what's up? Hey, guess what, Jay Gallagher? We'll be doing some trucking simulator over at the lounge later after the show. By the way, we are back at the lounge, so if you aren't subbed or you've been unsubbed from YouTube, or you just want to sub up and hang out, there's the link. We'll be doing some truck simulator over there. I got some loads to do. What's up? So you mind if I... Well, I'm doing StreamYard live calls, bro. So after we get through, it's about a, 40-minute interview with Turvey. We're going to check that out. We're going to check out a short video from Anjanette Levy about the leaker investigation, and then I'm going to open it up to StreamYard live calls. So if you're kicking it at that time or any other time, man, come on back. Sundays are the days where we'll be doing the live calls pretty much almost the whole show. When we do our weekly updates with Rosie. Shout out Rosie. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the special guest co-host, Rosie Overtime, here's the link. Make sure you go sub up to her, show her some love. She does a tremendous job doing these shows for us over here at EvilleCJ Media and Investigations. Let's see here. Hold on 1 second. What's up, Stone? Hopefully you're doing well. Shout out to Stone, too. Excuse me. Stone does some awesome audio work for the Idaho 4 case. Yeah, she is amazing. Shout out to Rosie. Shout out to her. By the way, Buggy, it's always been Buggy. Every time I do my shows, I set it to new instead of top. And no matter what, it always goes back to top. So make sure you click that setting and that you're seeing all chat and not top chat. All right, so I'm going to share this channel with you guys, and shout out to Donna Rutono. She's going to be the new, I'm just telling you right now, you know how I call shit before it happens. I'm just telling you right now, she is going to take over. So you see it right here. We've done it many times. Many times. You'll see right here, 3,000. I guarantee she's gonna have a shit ton a week from now. Watch. She's gonna be one of these mainstays. Classy as hell too. So shout out to her. And we're gonna share her channel. So Crime Justice Pod is the handle. And let me pull up the screen so you can make sure you're subbing up to the right one. And that it is right there, Crime and Justice with Donna Rutuno. So we're going to be checking out an episode where she had Dr. Brent Turvey on, I should say. And they're discussing a lot of stuff, especially the evidence. Now, Rosie and I are going to be going through, I think it was like, 3 hours or something like that. We're going to be going through that this weekend. I believe Saturday. Not sure. I believe Saturday. We're going to be doing that. But that's, I think, almost 3 hours. We're going to go through the whole thing in one show. It's going to be a marathon stream, but we're going to hang out. We're going to kick it. We're going to listen to all the conversation. But with this one, and maybe Rosie, I'm not sure. Maybe she might do one tomorrow covering this video because it's a really great conversation, and I would love to hear what she has to say about it too. Especially with a lot of this evidence stuff that's being discussed. So we're going to check that out. And definitely go show some love. So here's the link to the episode. So if you want to, you're more than welcome. Click on that link. Get it in your history. Save it to a playlist. Show some love. Subscribe to her. Give her some love in the comments. So show her some love. She's gotta help this lady blow up. Trust me, you're gonna enjoy this. Very classy. All right, so this is Brent Turvey. And when you do a half an hour interview, you don't have to worry about anything else. And you'll see what I mean when we break down the other 3-hour conversation. You'll see what I mean. When it's a half hour, you don't have to. You'll see what I mean. It keeps them in check. You know what I'm saying? It keeps them in check. All right, so we'll switch to this. Thank you all for being here. Now let's get this pulled up and let's get this checked out. Here we go. Let me see. Let me skip ahead to the beginning and pass the music here.
Crime and Justice. I'm Donna Rotuno. Before we begin, if you're enjoying the show, please hit the follow button. It's the best way to make sure you never miss an episode. A new book on the Idaho murders is raising questions about key evidence in the case against Bryan Kohberger. Joining us today is forensic criminologist Dr. Brent Turvey, who testified for the defense. Dr. Turvey, thank you so much for joining me. Well, I just want to get right in because this book was written by Chris Whitcomb, and this book is all about the broken plea in Bryan Kohberger, and the world watched as this case unfolded before our eyes. It got a ton of press, a lot of media, and there was a lot of information put out. And
she's got to turn down the gain on her microphone and possibly get a noise filter, because when you have a lot of electronic devices running, sometimes that can create that fuzzy sound. But if you do come across it, because it's going to show you that we aired your episode, so if you do come across this, all you have, just turn your gain down to like 60% and it should fix it. And otherwise, if it doesn't get fixed, then you might have to get like a noise filter that goes between your cable and your device. So but great episode. Can't wait. And I hope you guys love it too.
Information that was leaked, all these things that have gone on. And now, after this plea is done, we're able to read in the book, Broken Plea, about all of the pieces of evidence that are potentially problematic for the prosecutor and things that we all wish a court would have ruled on, and then we would have had some answers. So I would love to get into that with you and talk to you. Number one, what was your role and how were you hired to come on to the people of the state of Idaho versus Brian Koberger?
Certainly. It's a normal involvement for me, normal process. It's almost the same every time, but this was just slightly different, slightly more involved. I was originally contacted by Becca Barlow, who's a defense attorney that I have worked with in the past on other cases involving staged crime scenes. And she contacted me and wouldn't let me know what case it was, but said, I'm working on this case. We have a potential staging issue. Can you take a look at it? I want you to meet with the defense team, and I can't tell you what case it is. I said, okay. I mean, to me, that's like not a big deal. I have a caseload of about 35 to 40 cases at any given time. So, every lawyer has their own different way they do things. And so I agreed to meet with them via Zoom. I was traveling at the time. I think I was traveling in South Korean Seoul or something like that. So I met with them. There was a time difference, and we talked about certain things, and they vetted me a little bit. And they asked me to take a look at some evidence related to the knife sheath. And after I sort of gave a preliminary thought on it, they said, okay, well, what would you need to do to figure out, to sort of really do a proper assessment of this piece of evidence in context? And I said, well, you have to do a full crime scene analysis. You can't just look at one little piece of evidence out of context. So my role...
Which is normal because... Yes, you can look at a piece of evidence and it can tell you one story, but also it can tell a story that's not necessarily the truth. And so when it comes to possibly it being staged, yes, you can look at a piece of evidence, and he probably looked at the sheath and went, that's interesting, right? It's brand new. There's no blood on it. Like, just a couple speckles. Not what you would expect where it was, quote, between Maddie and the cushion. Not what you would expect, right? Especially if it was placed down before the act took place, right? Which is or it was dropped during, but still, the blood was wet, right? It wasn't dried, but it was.
Started out just looking at the knife sheath, and then it expanded into a full-blown crime scene analysis, which includes examining sort of the process of crime scene processing and physical evidence collection and documentation and chain of custody and all that good stuff to figure out what had been done, what hadn't been done, and what could still be done with the physical evidence. So my role started out just looking at the sheet, and then once that preliminary assessment was done, they expanded that role. And I was hired. Let me see. I just want to make sure I get the dates right because I always get them wrong. I started working on the case formally in October 2024, and I submitted my report in the case on January 22nd, 2025. And the reason why that time frame matters is because, as is often the case, the defense was under a deadline for disclosure of expert reports. And most people don't realize this because they don't work cases. They think that we have all the time of the world and the court's very accommodating. That's not true at all. You have the discovery that you have at the moment that's given to you by the state. You examine and evaluate that. And then the court puts in place deadlines for discovery, which very often the prosecution just ignores or blows completely, is not even interested in following that. You have to fight to get the discovery. So by January, we had a deadline and we hadn't received all the discovery yet. So even though I finished my report, which included a lot of different areas of examination and a lot of different areas of a lot of different conclusions related to the crime scene, related to the physical evidence, we still were working on material because material was still coming in from the state. Before I wrote my report, though, I went to Moscow and I examined all the physical evidence. And so that contract you contract for each part of your work. You get a contract for X dollars for X hours, and then you finish that, and then you determine if you need more, and you keep going until you're done. And the more discovery that's given in, the more time you need to evaluate it. And so I think there's a lot of confusion over, why, for example, the hair is in the report. That's all in there. Antonio knew all about that. The hair in Ethan's hand. But we'll
definitely talk about that.
Yeah. The chain of custody didn't get mentioned because we didn't discover it until later on, as there were subsequent data dumps and subsequent assessments. Because again, there just wasn't the time.
And I think that's what people don't understand, right? I mean, when you're a trial lawyer, especially when you're on the defense side, you're receiving information and they're sending these data dumps to the other side, and they send them whenever they want. And sometimes they don't send them in any rhyme or reason chronological order. So you get these things that maybe don't make sense, right, until you get the second dump or the fourth dump or the eighth dump, and then you're putting pieces together. It's almost like jigsaw. And so that's definitely a frustrating thing. So when you went to Moscow, obviously everything that you were able to review were the pieces of evidence that were actually inventoried by Moscow police the night of, and then the subsequent days that they were in that home. Is that correct?
So she just broke it down right there. The stuff, it's a chess game. It's a chess game. Out of order, sporadic, here and there. You really got to ask for it. Then they give it up. Like he said, they didn't even have the chain of custody until towards the end. And she just broke it down. That's just typical stuff. That's just what happens in most cases, which is why it's that chess game.
That's partly true. Absolutely true that everything that I was examining in Moscow at the Moscow PD was in a facility that they created just for this case because there was so much evidence. A storage facility just for this case, like a garage. And it was most of, I would say 70, 80% of what was there was what they had collected on their own. Then, and this is in my report, it's not a secret, it's all part of the files that have been released. They were going to bulldoze the house, and the defense sent their own team out there and recovered other things and took other photos, like the bed frame and other bloody items that were in the scene.
So right here, he says they were gonna bulldoze the house with the bloody bed frame that Ethan was laying on that had hair. What's up, Amy? Can you believe that? The prosecution was literally gonna demolish the house with the frickin' bed frame in it. What the hell? Hot. So then the bloody bed frame is going to be part of the debris that then gets hauled. Exactly. I mean, we know the game that the prosecution's been playing the whole time. Ever since they came across his vehicle that didn't match the specific year they were looking for. Hell, the DNA dirty gloves. Showing up to the crime scene before they even knew who did it with what. But damn. They were gonna. So you're telling me. So this is what's. Wait a minute. Because remember when I made my trip out there in 2023, November of 23, the 1-year anniversary, I made my trip out there. Remember because I did live streams at the hotel during the evenings during that trip. And remember when if anybody watched those, I was talking about how one of the days that I was there, I could hear like circular saws and hammers or whatever banging on walls, and it sounded like it was coming from 1122 before they tore down the house. So what were they doing? Were they fucking destroying evidence themselves? So that way when the house was demolished, everything was chopped up good, circular saws banging on it with a hammer. Like they were just going to leave a whole bunch of evidence in the debris pile. Wow. That kind of hits home for a minute way back then. Just remembering hearing that circular saw sound and the hammer sound coming from inside that house. Because that plywood was actually, it had, those plywood pieces had hinges on them. You can literally open it up like a door and go in. Hell, when I showed up the first day, the FBI was there. I parked right next to them. You can see it on one of the footages uploaded for the members. Huh, that's crazy. But it's just wild to hear that they would actually, I was too, Stone. That's why I'm so glad I went out there and got that footage before the house was torn down. Because you gotta, you can only tell a story, but the footage shows you. Look, you guys, I'm 3 or 4 steps away from my car, and I can literally be at the cement frickin' pad next to the couch in 3 to 4 steps. Like it's that close. The back corner, you see how close the back corner of the 3rd floor deck is to the parking area, and how somebody at Queen Road Apartments could literally be stalking them, and showed you that too. Like it was so important to have that house. And the sad thing about that house is that when they had all this time to make this model and they couldn't even make it to scale. You're going to tear the house down. You're going to have all this time and you couldn't even make the house to scale? Crazy. I was mad too. I was like, what the hell? That's why when the FBI was out there the second time and on Halloween in 2023, I said, pack my bags. I gotta go, because it's gonna get torn down soon. Just a month later, it was torn down, y'all. I went out there for the year anniversary, and just a month later, it was torn down. It's a shame. And you want to see what it looks like today? Here, let me share some photos. Somebody took some photos. Hold on. Somebody took some photos a couple days ago. Here, hold on. Let me share these with you. 1 second. There's like 6 or 7 pictures. I'll show them to you real quick. 6. Okay, here's one. Is it gonna load? What the hell's going on? All right, so here's one. Let me switch to this real quick. Hold on. All right, so here's one photo. Here, let's go full screen. Hold on. So there's one photo. That's what it looks like right now. It's so sad. Okay, here's another photo from another angle. It's just sad. It's just sad. This is the road that goes up next to Queen Road Apartments. That's the parking lot, and that's where the house was at. So sad. It's just it's so sad seeing it the way that it is. And there you go. The trees are overgrown. Look at these trees. They're like getting overgrown and everything. It looks like a angled lot now with all the overgrown shrubs and trees, and it's not even being mowed. It's not even being mowed. And they have a chain there so nobody can. Man, it's so sad to see it the way that it is. All right, so let's get back to this episode again. Shout out. And let's get back to this Turvey interview. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate you very much. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, there we go. There we go. Yeah, very
They
sad.
were just going to leave there or just destroy. So the defense directed the collection of a bunch of material, wisely so. And so there was a bunch of material that was held there that they had collected on behalf of the defense, but that was part of the original crime scene that they had ignored, including the bed frame where the hair was found.
That is just
Let's
absolutely
get into
crazy.
some of the pieces of evidence that really become, I think, the most problematic and some of the issues that you really delved into. And I'm going to lay out three of them because I found them to be probably the most significant in reading the book, Broken Plea. But then I listened to you do another podcast where you talked about these three issues. And I agreed that it's the knife sheath, it's the hair, and it's the fact that the cleaning up took place. Those three issues. So let's focus mostly on those today, because I think that's probably the most interesting to the people listening, especially people that listen to this podcast know that we kind of stay on the legal side of things. And then I want to get into the Ann Taylor letter and response after this book came out. So those are kind of the four things I want to touch on today.
Ooh-wee.
So why don't you walk me through?
Just wait until they get to the Ann Taylor stuff. It's gonna get, man. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. Please hit the like if you haven't. Yeah, I have a feeling that, I mean, you saw Ann Taylor's response, Turvey's last couple interviews. He's not holding back, and I have a feeling this is Ann Taylor versus Turvey is going to become a story soon.
So even as just, obviously I'm an attorney. I try high profile cases. I've been covering Kohberger. I had a different understanding of the entire way that the DNA was recovered from the button on the knife sheath to what it really sort of became when I read the book. So would you explain to the audience what that DNA really showed, how it showed it, and then we'll get into the chain of custody issues on that sheath.
So there was DNA in the form of a few cells, not necessarily blood, cells, cellular material, but not blood, that was found on the clasp of the K-bar knife sheath, which was documented in two places.
Two places we know. One was on the floor, one was under Maddie. We know that the first couple officers that came in there did not notate that the sheath was under Maddie. We know that. It wasn't until later on that the sheath was under Maddie. So what he says about the sheath right here exposes so much. So much. Because, yes, there's a few speckles, skin cells, but no blood. And great argument here, what he has to say. Because this shit don't match.
One, it was documented on the floor initially, and then it was documented as having been photographed underneath one of the victim's legs, underneath the comforter. So somebody slid it underneath the victim's leg and under her thigh, and it was touching the thigh and touching the bed sheet. All right. So the clasp right there. That's the only place there was DNA found that they tried to link to Koberger. Now, what's important in this case is the Franks hearing. A Franks hearing was held to discuss what was going to be admissible, what the DNA meant, and all that good stuff. And every single person who testified that this was a good investigative lead, but it wasn't conclusive to anything. All right. And so it needed to be run down. However, as you well know, and this is the problem. The difference between an expert and a lawyer is that when an expert is talking, when a lawyer is talking, they're making an argument, a legal argument, okay? When an expert is talking, they're giving evidence. There's a chasm, a difference of worlds between those two things. So,
and what a great point right there, too. When an expert is talking, it is evidence. Damn straight.
Very often, attorneys will go out and speak publicly about evidence, and it will not match what the experts would actually say when they're under oath.
Well, shoot, Amy, according to Turvey on a previous interview, he said that the ISP lab didn't even want to touch it because of the chain of custody issues. He's been bringing up the chain of custody issues, and he's been saying that ISP lab didn't want to. In one of them, now I don't know about these other interviews, but in one of his interviews, he for sure said ISP lab didn't want to touch it because of the chain of custody issues. Now, who knows? We got to see the evidence.
They're going to give their best version of that to the public. And that's one of the reasons why the judge in this case wisely put a gag order in place to try to prevent either side from trying the case in the media. But what was happening, of course, is that the prosecution...
They were trying the case of the media because of the leaks. And the leaks were happening from the beginning. Banfield. Sources close to the investigation. But they were feeding her half shit lies half the time. Half shit lies. That's the thing. Oh, we got a gag order, but we got the liaison, and he even brings it up too. You know, you got the leaker. Hello. We've been telling you for the longest. Tyson Barrett, hello. The liaison, the dude that was the lead investigator right in the very beginning before it was tossed off to Payne. He was the lead. He was the go-to. He was the one that worked for the university. He was the one that was a Moscow PD. He was the one that knew the families. He was the connection between the university, the police, the Idaho State Police, everybody, to the families. That's where the families were getting all this information. It was from Tyson. The leak is the one. Hey, listen, we got a gag order. We'll get in trouble. So we need you to go spread this information. Tell the families. The families will tell mainstream media. You know, I could sit there, you know, as much as they were coming out and getting blasted by the families sometimes, right? They probably sat back and enjoyed it because, you know, they're probably like, you know what? We're getting bruised up now, but oh, it's going to be so beautiful down the road. It's going to be worth the fight. We're going to take our punches right now because we know that we're going to heal from those punches, and later on down the road, we get what we want. As much like they put it out there. Yes, they're talking about us, but they're also putting out evidence. They're also putting out evidence. So that way, when we do what I do, you know, when we arrest Koberger, when we make this big flash, then all of a sudden that's going to make the families go, oh, you know, emotionally manipulated. They get them to hate them so much. And then all of a sudden, when they found the guy, now that hate that immense hate turns into immense support. That's why after the years go by and you see all these things going, damn, if that was my family member, I'd be questioning some shit, right? With the prosecution. If that was my, if that was my loved one that was a victim and this is what's happening, I would have been questioning shit. But none of them did because they played that emotional manipulation tactic. Make them frickin' hate you. And then you turn that immense hate to immense support, and they will sit there and follow you blindly. And look, they still are. They're still being followed blindly. Because listen, did the families get to see the evidence like Brett Turvey did? No. Are they experts like Brent Turvey? No. So when Brent Turvey is giving you this information, is telling you his thoughts and opinions, that's coming from a source who actually seen it, who read it, who digested it. And so if they can't sit there and ask themselves real questions, because there's only one real justice, and that's the truth. But maybe it's easier to just roll with that justice. And that's, who knows. Shout out to the Consalvas family, though, because they set up that organization, Murder Has a Name. That's a very good way to deal with the grief. Like, channel your energy into efforts like that, and amazing things can happen. You take your anger, your pain, and turn it into that. You can do amazing things.
He was telling everything to the families, and the families were discussing it in Pennsylvania, which was out of the jurisdiction of, the judge. So they were still evident. There was still stuff coming out. And it's like a game of telephone.
Any other writer who's sitting, any other writer or blogger or podcaster who's sitting in the audience at the courthouse and watching or reading a news article and making their own assessment of what they think was happening.
That's right. And so I have often worked cases where I'm watching a prosecutor talk on television about a case, and I'm thinking, where are they getting this information? This is not what the reports say. This is not what the police are saying. This is not what the testimony said. But they're giving their best version of it to try to, contaminate the jury pool in their favor, that's what they do. So the DNA in this case, I'm not aware of DNA that matches Brian Kohberger's anything. I'm aware that there's some investigative leads and some thoughts about it, but as even the police testified in the Frank's hearing, this was no better than a lead that should be followed. Nothing conclusive that was about it. So that's the first thing to understand.
I know you're not.
See, so you hear stuff like that as a family member of a victim, wouldn't that make you question shit? Because he looked at the evidence. Yes, he's part of the defense. But when you have somebody bringing up those key points, you have to sit back and go, man, what the hell happened here?
Not a DNA expert, but tell me how they even got to Kohberger. Wasn't it some hit that came back to his father in some database?
I'm going to leave that for other people, because I have seen multiple versions of this, depending on who you talk. That was one of the issues that was going to be attacked in court, because multiple versions of how Kohberger became a suspect are on the record. And it's problematic. Let's just put it that way. We have multiple versions of that. Sure. And as I'm sitting here talking to you, I wish we could have cleared that up with witness testimony on the stand, because there was a very big problem.
And that's the thing, right? Well, yeah, we won't be able to do that because of this plea. And so here's.
Yeah, that's the shame. We won't be able to see any of this evidence be argued, be questioned, and it's going to linger forever. And that's a shame. That is a shame. It's an injustice for society because this was going to be a teaching moment for society. Like, yeah, you got all of these questions. You have all of this evidence. And all of this mishandling and all of this contamination and all of, like, you have everything in this frickin' trial. And it's going to linger forever. It's very sad, Caddy. That's why after the plea last summer, I just, amongst being shut down, I don't know how many times from AI bots, and amongst other stuff, after that plea, I was just like, yeah, it's crazy. So many questions will be lingering forever. Even if somebody does an interview, even if BK does an interview, how do you know he's telling the 100% truth? You don't know. We'll never know. That's why we needed experts to break it down. Never happened.
That's my question. So we talked about the fact that the knife sheath was found initially on the floor, and you can see that right in body cameras when officers go into the home. Am I correct on that?
The body cams don't show it, but one of the officers says he found the knife sheath on the floor and he collected it from the floor. That's the first thing. But the photographs we have are not on the floor. They are of the knife sheath placed or inserted between the thigh and the bed sheet on the bed.
We knew, not on body cam. Documented, found on floor, collected, and then slipped under.
And it would make sense, I would assume, based on the evidence alone, that if that knife sheath was there initially, it would have been under the body and it would have been covered in blood or some type of substance if it had been there the entire time.
Well, it wouldn't have been. It could not have been there the entire time because of the way things happened. I mean, there's this concept that keeps getting repeated by people who don't know anything about the case or even have seen the crime scene photos. Like, the idea is it was dropped or it dropped and was left behind accidentally. No. This knife sheath, brand new, not used, not damaged, not injured, with just a few flecks of blood on it, was slid upside down between the victim's thigh and the bed sheet.
See, few specks of blood, not what you would see typical with the situation that took place. So there are already two different accounts. It doesn't match the crime scene because whether it was dropped or placed there, there would be a hell of a lot more. What's up, Bianca? Thank you. Ticket 27, much love to you. Thank you for hopping in. There'd be a lot more. But you know what I'm saying? When we seen the picture of the knife sheath, most of it would have been discolored. Like, let's be real. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood. Especially in that specific area. You got those two people. Maddie and Kaylee, that close to each other where they're laying on each other. The sheath is under Maddie, and yet barely nothing. Barely nothing. What's up, Glenn? How are you doing tonight? Thank you for hopping in. Turvey just dropping bombs. And Ann Taylor already spanked him after the book came out. Can you imagine the kind of spanking that's going to go back and forth now? Because he's not holding back. And we haven't even gotten to the part yet where they discuss the whole Ann Taylor stuff.
and it had no other blood on it, just a few flecks on it. All right. But the bed sheet underneath it had a star field of blood spatter that was not damaged or interrupted or impacted by that knife sheath sliding over top of it. So that means that blood was dry because it didn't get that that star field blood was dry when that knife sheath got put in place. It didn't transfer onto the knife sheath. It didn't smear it. It didn't move it. So it didn't get left behind. It didn't get accidentally left behind. It didn't get dropped. Somebody slid it into place underneath the victim's thigh, or that one victim's thigh.
Well, right. That's my point, because if it was dropped, it would have been covered in blood. And it would...
Right. So it would literally, what he's saying is that during things that are happening, the sheath rubbing against the splatter would create trails. It would transfer to the sheath. It would create trails from it touching each other. You'd see a little trail on the sheath. You'd see a little trail on the blanket. You would see those things. And that wasn't... You would also see the where blood wouldn't have been. Right? If the sheath was laying there and there's splatter going down above it, when you pick up the sheath, then there should be an outline where there's no splatter because the sheath has the splatter on it that was in that specific spot. So the fact that there's splatter, a sheath slid where it should have interrupted any kind of splatter, transferred. None of that took place.
If it was accidentally left there underneath that body, it would have been in a completely different condition.
Well, it wouldn't have been covered. Let me put it another way. If an offender who had just attacked those girls and killed them and transferred blood all over the bed and all over the walls, if that had happened, there would be blood on their hand. And sliding it into that position, there would have been blood on there would have bloody contact and transfer from their bloody hand onto the sheath, and that didn't exist either.
Okay, so now we know that's an odd.
Yeah, he basically said brand new, not used, clean, like straight, like it was just purchased. Hey, check this out. Hey, you want to look at this knife real quick? I just bought it. Sure. Oh, cool. That's cool, man. Literally that easy. That's why when I'm out, when I'm out and other people are like, hey, you want to shoot this? And I'm like, nah, I'm cool. What? Are you nervous? Nah, I ain't nervous. I just ain't trying to put my prints on your shit. Would I like to, partake in that? Sure, of course. But at the same time, I'm good. I've always been that way. That's people. I got my own. You know what I'm saying? I got my own. If I'm out there with friends, we're whatever. Hey, you want to try this one out? No, I'm good. What, you chicken? No, I just don't want to put my shit on your weapon. Forget that, man. Why? Because you want. No, that's how some people get caught up. You know what I mean? Like, give me a break. Give me a break. For 10 seconds of enjoyment, man, I don't even, hell no. Hell no.
An odd thing that should have been either discussed at a pretrial motion and or a trial if there was going to be a trial on this.
Yeah.
But then the other aspect with this knife sheath is not only where it was found, how it was found, but once it was actually recovered, you talk about the chain of custody. And just so people understand, chain of custody is what happens when an officer finds a piece of evidence. And I listened to you talk about the fact that normally it's photographed and sometimes there's a measurement taken of it. They put a ruler next to it. There's usually an evidence placard with a number or a letter on it, a little yellow tent kind of a thing, which I see in almost every case I've ever tried.
That's right.
And that's not something that happened here. And then when it was put into the evidence bag and logged in, you're saying that there were things that should have happened that did not happen.
Well, a chain of custody is meant to be the record of everybody who has had any contact with or touched or examined or removed evidence from a particular item of evidence. Okay, that is a sworn sort of document that exists on the evidence bag, so that anybody who collects it, they put their signature on this date, collected at this date, this location, this time by this examiner or this technician or this officer. Then it's got blank spaces so that they can then take it to the evidence facility, and the evidence facility receives it in with signature of somebody. And then if somebody goes to that facility and checks it out, there's a new signature, and that person receives it in on this date and time. Then they return it on the date and time, and it's received by somebody else. So you know exactly who handled it, when, and for what reason. And everybody who handled it is supposed to write a report, to make sure we know what they did, whether or not they just looked at it, or they took pieces off of it for DNA testing, or they photographed it, or took measurements, or whatever. It's a legal form to make sure we know everybody who touched it, so that so that they can be certain that nobody tampered with it. And this evidence form, so the Idaho State Police get this bag and they put a barcode on it, which is not the chain of custody. Barcode is.
Okay, so I do have to mention now, when Rosie and I were doing the breakdown of Christopher Whitcomb's book, we did that the weekend before last. So it was a weekend, almost 2 weeks ago. Check out that episode if you haven't yet. She did a wonderful job with awesome PowerPoints and great points did the whole book in one episode. So as we were discussing it, and in other shows too, recently I've said, okay, we've known from the beginning that they were doing digital chain of custody, right? Even Captain or Chief Dollinger came out recently and doubled down on that, saying that, hey, we've been doing the digital chain of custody since before the Idaho 4 case, and everything is chain of custody. So when we were discussing it, and I was like, and I was showing the photos, and I was like, it's got a barcode. Like, the barcode is got to be to the link that brings up the chain of custody, right? That's what I was assuming. Obviously, I was wrong, because, I'm sitting here going, hey, look, he didn't see all the evidence. The chain of custody digital file, that's even better than a paper copy, because the digital file has the timestamps, the exact timestamps, like who entered the information, all of that, right? So the digital copy, just think like if you take a photo, right? You take a photo with your camera, you put it on your computer, you go to the properties, and you look at all the different information, right? Like all of it, all that different information, the times, the dates, modified, blah, 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 where, who, what, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of that information is in there. So the digital copy has to have, like, look, so-and-so says he did it, but really it came from so-and-so's computer. Like, it would say that, right? So it would be more beneficial, because people couldn't be doing twisted shit, because it would show up, right? So when I'm talking about the barcode in the previous shows, I'm like, look, that could be the chain of custody, that we might not even have a chain of custody issue, because it's all digital. Maybe, look, we know that there's so much evidence that they haven't seen yet. So maybe it's the digital copy is in that evidence somewhere. And so to say that there was a chain of custody issue, it's like, hold on, hold the phone. But when I heard this interview, and I heard him say that barcode was not for the chain of custody, I said, what? Not for the chain of custody? What? What's up, Christine? I do not think PH. Let me know what PH is. Government? No, I don't think the government is involved in it. You're right, CJ. It got compromised. Yeah, Payne. It's like I said from the beginning. Payne was the little pit bull. You know. You have Scooby Doo, and you got Scrappy Doo, the little teeny Scooby that's just mad at the world trying to fight everybody. He's Scrappy Doo. Payne is Scrappy Doo. He's a little Scooby Doo that's trying to scrap everybody. He's their pit bull. The one that you say, jump, and he says, how high? Of course. That's why he was put in the lead. Like, you got somebody that wasn't even the first on the scene, that has the seniority, that has more experience. Hell, Captain Tyson Barrett was doing a hell of a job, and then they frickin' booted him to put Payne in there because Barrett had to back away because of conflicts of interest. Dude, just because your daughter went to the school doesn't mean it was a conflict of interest. You live in that community, you work for the police department. I'm sure you'd feel the same way if you didn't have a daughter going to school there. Give me a break. But you know what? We're going to take the lead away from you, but we're going to give you an important role, Mr. Barrett. What's that? We're going to give you one of the most important roles, Mr. Barrett. You're going to be the liaison between us, the university, and the families. And then you can give the families information. It won't be documented because it's not going to be in a phone call. It's not going to be in a text message. It's not going to be in a letter. It's not going to be in an email. You just let them know, look, don't say nothing and make sure this conversation's not recorded, but I'm going to give you this evidence information. Hell yeah. He was like, oh, hell yeah. He's Mr. Man getting awards and shit while he's just chilling back being the guy in the background. I'm telling you, I told you guys a long ass time ago, he's going to be the leak and it's going to be exposed. And it's going to be something we called a couple years ago. Because he's the damn leak. Personal. Oh, yeah. Hold on 1 second. If you want to send me information, a link or a little thing will pop up. What's up, Leslie and Billy? How are you doing? They took it up. Yeah, right. Little pit bull Scrappy Doo. Little pit bull Scrappy Doo. 100 degrees. Jeez. Yes, if you have info for the show, you can send it to that email or you can send it to any social, honestly. Any social. Oh, it already came up. Thank you, Caddy. I didn't see that. I was scrolling through. Thank you, Caddy. I was scrolling through comments and I didn't see you already did it. Thank you. All right, back to this. Now, let's scoot back just a skosh.
It's a legal form to make sure we know everybody who touched it, so that so that it can be certain that nobody tampered with it. And this evidence form, so the Idaho State Police get this bag and they put a barcode on it, which is not the chain of custody. Barcode is for locating the item in the facility.
Right.
But what shelf is it on? What building, what shelf, what name, that kind of stuff. What case? That's what the barcode's for. That's not a chain of custody. That's just for locating it. Right? Who's got it? Where is it at? But when you're handling it, that's where you have to have signatures. Each individual person who handles it checks it out and puts it back in it's like a library. Remember the old days with a library book? It's like that. So you know who checked it out.
Yeah, and to make sure you have gloves on, right? That you had gloves on, that you were, because
well, you're supposed to document. That's part of it, where you document your examination for sure.
Is it the same guy that left the country? Is it the same guy that his story all of a sudden became Eric Grower's story? How he lived 1,200 feet from Brian Koberger? If that's the same guy, let me know. No, it's not the same guy. Because he turned in Brian's car too. He turned in Brian's car. He turned in Brian doing DNA ancestry to the police. And then he was allowed to leave the country and never had to come back. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Whitman? I'll have to check that out. Shout out to her.
That's pretty uncommon. Most examinations are done not that well. But let's forget that. Forget the part of the examination. Let's just talk about physically writing your signature and agreeing that you received this item on this date, and then that you gave it back. And the person you gave it back to, they received it from you. It's all about demonstrating the trust of that item of evidence. So you know that nobody tampered with it, nobody messed with it. And if there was tampering and somebody did damage it or manipulate it or interfere with it, you know who it was. In this case, the Idaho State Police sent an email to Moscow PD saying, hey, we don't have a chain of custody for this. Can you give us one? So a couple of days later, Moscow PD sends them this chain of custody sticker to put on it. And it's one person who has signed it over for 6 different people on 6 different examinations or 6 different outings for this item. You can't do that. That's called fraud. It's falsification. It's actually a crime when you falsify chain of custody. It's not a small deal. It's a very big deal. Anybody who's saying this is a small deal you need to look at all their casework and go, okay, if you think this is a small deal, that means you've done this before. You've manufactured a chain of custody. So we need to look at your work.
And I agree. I agree with you. I just want to play devil's advocate and ask this question because I know that this is out there and I've heard people talking about this.
Yeah.
If an officer, finds something at a crime scene, obviously, and, puts it aside, and then later goes back and says, okay, let's talk about who did what with this, because they're usually not documenting in real time, right? Sometimes they walk around with little notebooks and take their notes or general progress report notes or whatever they're taking. Now, again, those are discoverable and should be turned over. So that's something that
they put it in their pocket or put it in their trunk or they take it home. Yeah, they can get fired for that. That's a problem if they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And practically speaking, though, we know, and not that they take it home, but practically speaking, a lot of times they recover things from a crime scene and they go to, the trunk of a vehicle. They're supposed to have envelopes and things, right, that they put it in right away. And either, like you said, they take the photos beforehand, then they put it in the envelope, they sign off on that envelope. So that's what they're supposed to do. But if an officer says, look, I was taking notes on what was happening throughout the course of this day, and then later I went back to do it, is that something that is not allowed? Just for the audience.
It's sloppy. I mean, you got to do it in real time as you.
Yeah, she reminds me of like a brunette Megyn Kelly. Like she's awesome. She's awesome. She's gonna be the new one. Definitely. And she's very classy too. She's going to be the brunette Megyn Kelly.
You're doing it so you don't mess up and lose things. Like in this case, they were doing exactly what you were saying. They were putting things off. Like, for example, we have a bloody bracelet that was found eventually in the photographs that were released in the first floor bedroom on the right. This bloody bracelet was photographed in that place, and then somebody picked it up and moved it to a desk in the same room. And then they photographed it there. Incidentally, I don't think they knew they were photographing it because they never collected it. They intended to collect it, but they were excited and they forgot because they weren't doing it in real time.
They're excited and they forgot. And that's the kind of justice that those victims received. It's so sad.
So the idea of doing everything at the end, I mean, you see that with people who work drug seizures, but not with people who work homicides.
We could both agree that this was not a handled crime scene, right? These are officers that have no experience in this.
Talk about the DNA dirty glove, Donna. Talk about the DNA dirty glove. The DNA dirty glove. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the link to it. Get it in, you click on it, get it in your YouTube history, and then come back. to the show that's also in your YouTube history. And you can have it and check it out after we're done if you haven't seen it. I did a revisited video to break it even more down. Like, I would love to hear what they have to say about this DNA dirty glove. What are we talking about here? We're talking about the stuff on the inside. Let's talk about the stuff on the outside that happened before the stuff on the inside, especially when we're talking about contamination, especially when we're talking about contradictions, especially when we're talking about mishandling, especially when we're talking about evidence that doesn't line up with the crime scene. Don't you think? I mean, hello?
Type of work. They came to that scene thinking they were coming for more of a well-being check, and then it turns into this, awful quadruple homicide.
And thank you to Caddy as well.
And so I think that they walked in completely unprepared, which is not an excuse. It's fodder for great cross-examination. But I think that that's what happened. Let's move on to the hair, because I want to get to that, because I think it's really, that to me is even more fascinating. The fact that that's such an important piece of evidence. When you're
right, why did you not want it tested? If you're just joining, check out the intro of the show. I've sat here, if you've been with me from the beginning, throughout this whole time, I have done nothing but back and Taylor to the fullest, this whole time. And today, I had to ask myself the question I asked myself in the intro for the first time ever. And part of it's because of this right here.
Trying to determine who potentially could have committed a crime. Those types of pieces of evidence are key. So talk to me about the hair.
Sure. So anytime, and this is not Brent Turvey's idea. This is something that exists in the world and in the world of criminal and forensic investigation. For example, when you're doing an autopsy and somebody's had a close contact murder where somebody's like right on top of them or right near them, you want to see if they grabbed at their attacker. And you collect fingernail scrapings. We hear about that all the time. You collect anything that might have transferred onto their clothing.
That's why they bag the hands and such. That's why they do that, because they preserve evidence that could possibly be under the nails. I don't know how none of them tried to scratch them. I don't know. It just you would think that there would be something under somebody's nails, right?
Any evidence of sexual assault. In this case, what you have, Ethan.
Oh yeah, they didn't test stuff. That's right.
Ethan's right hand.
Oh, that's right. They couldn't test more than one profile. Forgot.
Is a clump of hair in his hand. And that hand falls down between the bed frame and the wall. And the blood goes down his arm, and it essentially seals his hand to the bed frame. Sealing hair to the bed frame, sealing the hair to his hand.
Seals his hand to the bed frame. He has a clump of hair in his hand. We already know the injury up here. That leaks down his arm, and his hand is in between the wall and the bed frame, and it seals his frickin' hand. The blood actually sealed his hand to the bed frame and the hair. And let's not get it tested. Let's not get it. Ann Taylor, let's not get it tested. Ann Taylor, let's not get it tested. When you die a violent death and you have something in your hand, and like Ethan, you're squeezing it. When you die violently, a lot of the times your body is frozen with what you were doing, and sometimes it clenches even tighter. So the fact that you have a clump of frickin' hair in your hand and you died, it's not like you're holding that hair and then somebody comes and attacks you. It obviously happened during the attack. And he died that violent death that made his hand grasp that hair and hold it tight even though his body was passed. How in the hell do you not get that tested? How? Especially when it's a different color and a different length. Way longer than Koberger's hair. You're a defense attorney. You're trying to argue that your client didn't do it. You have hair grasped in a victim's hand that is not anywhere near the hair of your client, and you don't want to get it tested? It makes me wonder, because I told you guys how it is up there in northern Idaho, Washington State, mainly Idaho. I told you guys how it was there it's claustrophobic. I've talked to people that live there. We even had James on that discussed why he left and moved to Albania from Moscow because of the experiences that he went through. It makes me wonder, would Ann Taylor have been the pariah of the community? Would Ann Taylor, if she would have won this case, would she have been looked at like the cancer of the community? Is that, I just don't understand. You're a defense attorney. You have evidence that, you could literally have experts up there arguing how that hair wouldn't have existed in his hand until the attack. And then during the attack, and then the fact that it was still, and he's saying that it was so stuck together, the hair. Think about it. If his hand was literally sealed to the bed frame, the hair was sealed to his hand. It doesn't make sense.
It's a large clump. It's unavoidable. And then it gets written up in the investigative reports and the autopsy reports as debris.
Which is horrible. The fact that it's labeled as debris. How disrespectful to Ethan. Ethan has evidence in his hand that if it don't point to the killer, I don't know what to tell you. He literally has evidence in his hand, and the investigators labeled it as debris. How fucking disrespectful to Ethan. How disrespectful to Ethan. His life was taken away. His soul's floating up above, looking down. Thank God that I took something from the killer that can help solve the murders of me and my friends, and it's labeled as fucking debris? Whew. So disrespectful. Ethan, prayers. We're calling it for what it is if others ain't. That's so fucking disrespectful.
Not his hair. There's no mix of items there. It's so just the hair. And it's a big clump. So you want to know where that came from. You need to know, because that's a last contact sort of issue. It's the same as finding things under the fingernail. You need to know Did Ethan grab out and pull somebody's hair out, or was the hair placed there? We don't know. We need to know. We need to find out. We need to test it.
Right.
And in this case, it was sent to the FBI lab, and the FBI says, "Oh, we examined the hair, and we looked at the physical characteristics, and Brian Kohberger is excluded." But they didn't compare it to anybody else in the house or any other suspects. And then second thing is they didn't do testing. The defense didn't do testing, and the prosecution didn't do testing.
Of course, the prosecution's not going to do any testing because they can't do more than one profile. But the fact that Ann Taylor didn't, it's like I said in the intro. If you just joined and you ain't checked it out, definitely check out the intro, because this whole time I've sat here and backed her 100%, even when people were fucking going after her. And I'm like, this Ann Taylor, she's the best. She's the best. If I ever, I mean, I've been saying it since the day Kohberger was arrested. Man, I would want her to defend me. And then today, May 14th, 2026, is it? Just like I've been saying and backing her, I've been asking since the plea deal, how in the hell does somebody take this plea deal? And today, I sat here and went, I got some questions. How in the hell do you not want this tested after everything that I just broke down a second ago? And then I had to sit there and go, because the whole time I'm like, you don't take the fucking plea deal. This is horrible. You wrote, like, you had such a great chance. All of it. And did you take the plea deal? And I have to ask myself, did BK take the plea deal because he knew Ann Taylor was preventing evidence from being tested or discussed or even brought in? Oh, it's just debris. Because hell, if your own defense won't even fucking test other stuff that literally points to it not being you, and your lawyer's not even, I can see why somebody might get cold feet and go, you know what? I don't want to die. I can see somebody getting cold. Would I do it? Hell no. I'm rolling those dice. But damn, after your own defense won't even, that had, man. Then why in the hell did you stop the cleaning crew, Ann Taylor? Why did you stop the cleaning crew the morning BK was arrested if you weren't gonna fucking test evidence in somebody's death grip? What the hell? Leslie and Billy, I have a question if you don't mind. But if the crime scene is staged, what not to say the hair in Ethan's hand and bed frame could have been getting ripped out of their hair, placed in Ethan. I mean, so I get what you're saying, trust me. But with what he just said, he said, there's no way you couldn't not notice. That's how large a clump of hair that was in his hand. So that's a yank. The only way that I see Ethan having that much hair in his hand is because a combination. Adrenaline, and it was the killers. So Ethan was obviously fighting back because he grabbed the person's head. But when you're getting slaughtered like Ethan was, your body shoots itself full of adrenaline. And so that extra adrenaline, while you have the grip of somebody's hair, that extra adrenaline and force, you're gonna rip out that large clump that Turvey's talking. The fact that it's not unnoticeable, like it was so obvious. That's how large it was. It's a combination. You got the killer's hair in your hand, and when you're getting slaughtered, the adrenaline that gets shot through your body, natural process, gives you that extra where the whole just whoever was missing a patch of hair, there's your freaking killer. Whoever was missing a patch of hair, because the fact that it would be a large clump, oh yeah, somebody's missing a patch somewhere for sure. It's a shame. Like, they could have interviewed. That's what I'm wondering. How many interviews took place in Idaho where somebody had a patch of hair missing? We obviously know the prosecution and the investigators labeled it as debris, right? So they don't give a shit about it. They could have interviewed somebody that had a patch of hair missing, and they probably could have thought to themselves, well, damn, the patch of, we're already testing DNA from the knife sheath. I wonder who all got interviewed that had a patch of hair that was missing. That's my newest question.
To determine whose hair that was. And whether there's a root or not, that's the first thing. But the second thing is you can test the hair itself, the shaft, for mitochondrial DNA and start eliminating people.
Sure. Let me ask you this. Do you think that for the defense, the fact that it wasn't Brian Kohberger and the FBI could say, we can exclude Brian Kohberger, do you think that that evidence is enough for the defense to say, look, there was hair in his hand and it wasn't Brian Kohberger? So there's reasonable doubt right there. I mean, I agree that it should have been tested, but I also think that some of that, the prosecutor, right, if they're supposed to be out there trying to figure out who committed this crime, isn't that a better argument for the defense at trial to say, look, they had this evidence. We know it's not our guy. So, I mean, I think on the hair, I almost can give more of a pass in terms of the not pushing to test it once your client was eliminated than I can on not dealing with the knife sheath and the potential DNA and all these other chain of custody issues. On the hair, I can kind of understand maybe saying as a defense attorney, I have enough of an argument to make there.
No, I'm just saying there's a lot of defense attorneys who think that way. They're frightened of the unknown question. Like, they don't know the answer. They don't want to know the answer. They don't want to ask.
I always want to know the answer. So like when I talk to a client, I always want to know. I don't ever say I don't want to hear. I'm not the lawyer that says, don't tell me, because then I can't know. I want to know every single thing that I can know. But I'm wondering let's say you find out that the hair matches, whoever, right? How does that change the fact that it doesn't match Brian, other than to say they completely screwed up, which I think they had a lot of evidence to say anyway, meaning the prosecutor.
People ask.
I guarantee you an expert would have argued the frickin' hair in somebody's hand and the death grip. Like, come on. This is so crazy. The hair in the hand is as important as the sheath. And we all know how important the sheath is. The hair in the hand is just as important. Period. I don't know how they're not. It doesn't make sense.
Because they're watching too many movies and television which are telling them, oh, lawyers don't want to know the answer to questions that they don't know the answer to already. You don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. that is an amateur sort of idea that exists in movies and television. In the real world, this is a real case with a real defendant on trial for his life, and the investigation requires that you actually test the hair. So the prosecution had an obligation to do this. It's a important fact that they didn't want to test it. All right.
Agree.
The second thing is, once you test it and you source it to its origin, first you eliminate people. You say, okay, it doesn't belong to anybody in the house. Now, who does it belong to? We need to find that person, because somehow that hair got into this guy's hand. Once you figure out whose hair it is, you can just determine what the nature of that interaction might be. And you might actually solve the crime. It might be some person who's responsible for the murders, right? So if you're doing,
and I agree that that's the prosecutor should do that 100%.
But the defense should want to do it too, because I get it. Let me answer your question. The problem is, as an expert, if I'm on the stand and I'm...
Damn, bro, it's not that serious. Holy shit. Damn. Bro, it's not that serious, man.
Now, who does it belong to? We need to find that person, because somehow that hair got into this guy's hand. Once you figure out whose hair it is, you can just determine what the nature of that interaction might be. And you might actually solve the crime. It might be some person who's responsible for the murders, right? So if you're doing...
and I agree that that's the prosecutor should do that 100%.
But the defense should want to do it too, because I get it. Let me answer your question. The problem is, as an expert, if I'm on the stand and I'm saying this hair should have been tested, the very first question the prosecutor is going to ask me is, well, if you thought it was so important, Dr. Turvey, why wasn't it tested? And my answer is going to be, I don't know. And that's going to...
Damn, and that would have... Oh, my gosh. Man. So he's basically telling you when he would be up on the stand during trial and the prosecution would have sat there and asked him, well, Mr. Turvey, if this evidence is so important, why wasn't it tested? And he why wasn't it tested from the defense, right? If this hair is so important, I already told you how important it is. It's just as important as the frickin' knife sheath. Death grip. Hello. I could make an argument that the hair in Ethan's hand is even more important than the knife sheath. What's up, Suze Mac? It is that serious. No, I'm talking about Turvey. Like, let me answer you. She's like, no, let me ask you this question. Like, he wasn't understanding it. And he's like, no, let me answer. I'm like, whoa, dude, just chill out. The dude's a little, it's 20 minutes in. You know what I'm saying? When we break down our other interview, you'll see a little more of what we're talking about here. You'll see a little more. But yeah, can you imagine how damning that would have been to the defense when he's up on the stand and the prosecution goes, hey, Mr. Turvey, if this hair was so important, how come the defense didn't get it tested? And he responds with, I don't know. Oh my God, I guarantee you the courtroom would have went, right? They would have went, oh yeah. There would have been a gasp. There would have been a freaking gasp. Like, what? All of the work that the defense could have done up until that point, and then they get to Turvey, and Turvey... It's why I'm sitting here asking in my intro. In my intro of the show today. From the day Koberger was arrested, back to Ann Taylor 150%, even to the naysayers. And today was the first day that I sat there and went, why didn't you do this, Ann? Oh, the debris? Psh. I think it was before that. January 25, I think it was before that. It had to be. It had to be in the beginning. This wasn't something that they just came across. We know that. They knew about this. He even says it like they knew about it the whole time. They knew about it the whole time. But see, the thing is Brent Turvey was the one that actually, he went there, he looked at the evidence, he was shown the evidence, remember, because he had the Moscow police officers, Brett Payne was even with him, escorted him, took him there, and Turvey's the one that said that the hair was still on the bed frame, and he could tell that Ethan's hand was on the bed frame. And then you look at the photos of the evidence that he looked at of the victims, and he said you could not notice the clump of hair in his hand. So then he looks at the evidence log, and he's like, oh, wait a minute. So they're saying this is debris? And they've known about it. This is before the chain of custody issue. Way before that. And you didn't want to have it tested, and then you're going to have an expert go up and testify, and he already knows that the prosecution's going to, well, if it's this important to your argument, because that's one of his arguments about what he's saying and how important this stuff is the hair in Ethan's hand, and it's way more important than the knife sheath to me. How in the hell? You know, and it's weird. It really, it's weird. It's really weird for me to sit here and feel this way about Ann Taylor for the last 3.5 years. I've sat here and backed her 150%, and today I'm the complete opposite. It's a weird feeling for me today. I don't know how you don't. It's the same thing, like he's saying. Like, you don't get it. Like, really? I mean, come on.
I think that's fair, especially if you're going to testify. But
what?
But what if it comes back? What if it comes back to, Brian Koberger's best friend, or it comes back to the guy that, was potentially on Brian Koberger's phone list of phone calls? I mean, I'm just saying that also opens up the door to convicting your client when. So I just you have to think it through.
No. That's fantastical. Brian Koberger didn't have a best friend, and he wasn't talking. He was a loner. He doesn't. In this context,
we know that now.
Yeah,
we knew
that then,
right?
We knew that then.
But
we knew that then, and it doesn't matter. The answer is, if you're trying the case on the facts, you want to have all the facts, all right? And you're already out there making the argument that he's innocent. You're already out there making the argument that he didn't do it, and there's no way he could have done it, and the timeline's all wrong. If you're making that argument, and there's this pertinent piece of evidence that you refuse to test, it's going to destroy whatever credibility you've developed as a defense team. And they're going to ask that question. It's going to be a question that gets asked immediately. And it's going to destroy the credibility of every defense
and
expert.
I agree that it's going to be asked of the expert. I agree that it's going to be asked of the expert. But I think from a strategical standpoint, that these are questions that have to be at least discussed with the client. And what if the client says, no, I don't want to test it?
Yeah, well, let's answer that question. In this case, the argument from the defense publicly, this is not me violating a privilege, the argument from the defense team was that he was mentally infirm, had mental health issues.
Yes.
And could not really, and if that's true, then you understand that he couldn't, that the belief was from their side, from their opinion, that from their public statements, that he really couldn't participate meaningfully in his defense. He was in his own defense. So he should be taking the advice of experts and the advice of attorneys, because, and then the other question is, was he even aware of that? Because
like was he even aware? Because like she said that he wasn't even that much of an active participant in his own defense. Wasn't even an active participant. He was getting all of his information off of the TV shows. That's why he watched all the stuff about him. That's so crazy, man. How did this plea happen?
Because I'll tell you what's true. I wasn't aware of it until I went to Moscow and examined the bed frame. I didn't even know there was hair because of the way that the documents were all written. It wasn't until I went and examined it myself and said, what the heck is this?
See? He didn't even know there was hair because it was labeled as debris. Maybe it could be paint chips. Who knows? You know? He didn't even know until he went and examined it. Bed frame. Let her know long ass time ago. And she's known the whole time. And do you know, like, when it comes, she could have got it tested. The state's paying for everything. Hell, she got rich off this case. She got rich off this case. And the state was paying for it. It's not like it comes out of her own pocket. The state's paying for it. The taxpayers are paying for it. We go get it tested at this lab. I mean, shit, there's so much of it, right? There's so much hair. There's so much to get tested. I mean, you could literally split it up and send it to different labs if you wanted. You had plenty.
That this sort of floodgate opened up.
Yeah, because it said debris or something, right? Didn't it say?
Yeah, they said it was debris, and they were hiding it that way. I'm like, this isn't debris. This is hair. So I think the what if problem is subordinate to the issue of let's develop all the facts and evidence so that we know what the strengths of the state's case are. That's the role of the expert, is to come in and say, here's what the state has done, here's what they haven't done, here's what we can still do, here are the strengths of their evidence, here are the weaknesses of their evidence, and here's what theories are supported and here's what theories are refuted. And the best way to do that is to have as much objective forensic testing of that potentially exculpatory evidence. Let's imagine 2 years in the future, the Innocence Project gets involved here and they test it, and it comes back to somebody else who's committed similar crimes. Would you then say it was a bad idea? No, you're trying to figure out who did this.
Thank God it still exists, no? Thank God it still exists. And hopefully it does get tested. It's more important than the Sheath. Come on. It should have been the numero uno getting tested.
And that would be the kind of thing that would overturn the case.
Death grip.
So the role of an expert such as myself is to make sure that potentially exculpatory evidence is highlighted and that it is tested, to make sure that we're all on the same page. And if somebody's trying to hide that, no matter who they are, that needs to come out. There's a public interest in having that come out. And if I were the one trying to suppress it and not talking about it, it would be my reputation destroyed later on down the line for hiding it.
Sure. Yeah. And I definitely agree with that. Let me ask you this. I'm going to move past the cleaning aspect just because of our time constraints here, because I really want to talk about Ann Taylor and Ann Taylor's response. So
here we go.
You spoke to Chris for Chris's book, Broken Plea. Chris has very high regard for you. I've interviewed Chris. He talked about you and your work on my podcast. And then Ann Taylor comes out and says that you violated the attorney-client privilege and that you should not have come out and spoken. And it's really the only statement that she has made. So I'm going to let you respond to that. And then I'm going to tell you what I think was strange about her response. Go ahead.
Of course. So let's just do a timeline here of events so we're all on the same page. I didn't hold back anything. Everything that I knew, I told Ann Taylor to make sure that she had the best information for decision making. So all the things that have been discussed publicly, she was given that information. So she had it. And she also vetted me and vetted my report. We went through a couple drafts of it where I was adding things that questions she was having to make sure that when it got submitted, it was the full breadth of the opinions that she wanted on the record. So that report that got put on the record, the full totality of that report, like a 27-page report, that was something that she screened, felt was valid and competent, and submitted to the court. Otherwise, she's doing something wrong or something incompetent. So that's first part. That report gets put in January 2025. Then I don't find out about the plea until everybody else in the world finds out about it. All right. And so once that happens, within a month of that, the judge removes the gag order on the case. Now, what we have signed is an NDA to not discuss things that are work product. And that's pretty normal. I wouldn't do that anyway. That's not a thing for me. I don't need that kind of attention. But in this case, we have one, the scabbard being the falsified chain of custody. That's a crime. That has to come out. And nobody's talking about it, so it has to be discussed. Two, the hair not being tested as exculpatory evidence, potentially exculpatory evidence. Nobody's talking about that. That has to come out. So those things are Brady issues that are required to be discussed, and they're not being discussed by anybody. So what happens is, starting in October, I get contacted by Chris Whitcomb through a colleague of mine, and he's writing a book on this thing. And so I start talking to him about it, and then I start sharing information with him around December or so. And then by January, all these disclosures have already started to come out from the state. So all the information that he's getting is not work product. I don't have access to the defense material, to the defense reports. We were all compartmentalized. I have access to mine and to the defense pathologist report. All right, that's it. And that gets incorporated into my report. So the timeline is, from that point on, all this stuff is being revealed by Idaho State Police or in the Moscow PD. It's all coming out, being revealed. All the discovery is being made public. And then in January, I believe, there was a disclosure of Paulette Sutton, the state's experts, her response to my report, a point-by-point response where she essentially agrees with everything, but says, the way this worked is the guy was probably naked running around the crime scene, which is just sort of nonsensical. But that gets turned into an article that is published in January. I think Fox News did an article about it, about my findings. They didn't contact me or get information from me about it. They just did a report about my findings as disclosed in this document that was released publicly, right? So I was the only expert for the defense whose findings were made public. Not always the underlying material, but the findings were made public. Then subsequent to that, People Magazine apparently got a copy of my report and produced a whole article about it. And remember, Chris Whitcomb's book hasn't come out yet. In fact, it's being sort of held back because we're waiting for things to come out, or he's waiting for things to come out, I guess, because I wasn't involved in the publication process or the writing process. I just sat for an interview or a couple of interviews. And by the time his book comes out, all this stuff has already been released and already been discussed in the public. So when Ann Taylor comes out, she's upset apparently because she thinks I violated work product. She doesn't say how. She doesn't say what information I released that wasn't already public. And she doesn't make any specific allegations other than to say that because I violated the NDA, which is nonsense, I did not. The disclosures put everything out into the public, so that's already out there. And then there's Brady evidence that needed to be talked about, and you can't hide that. Whatever NDA you have doesn't cover crimes, doesn't cover Brady material, right? You can't use an NDA to hide that, all right? So when she comes out and says you should view his credibility through the lens of his behavior of violating this NDA, and I'm like, yeah, you should, because I'm not the kind of expert who hides exculpatory material. I'm not the kind of expert who hides crimes. I don't do that. And I think she expected that I would.
I thought it was interesting. For me as a lawyer, if I felt that I was attacked in some way, and again, these were decisions she made, and I will preface this by saying this. We have no idea what took place between Ann Taylor and Brian Kohberger. We have no idea why he ultimately decided to take a plea. We have no idea if he confessed to her that he killed 4 people and that at the end of the day, he made a decision that he wanted to do this. We don't know. And, lawyers and clients decide for a variety of reasons why pleas should happen. And again, that's completely separate and apart from what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is the fact that we never got to see this play out because there wasn't a trial. And when there was supposed to be a trial, in the 11th hour, this changed. Who knows? Did Brian Kohberger say, I just want to do anything to avoid death penalty? Maybe. We just don't know. But I will say this. I found the letter that she wrote to be very interesting. And as a defense attorney, if I felt that I needed to respond to something that was being done by one of my own experts, that is absolutely not the way I would have handled it. So that I will say.
Well, let's even do it more differently, because let's talk about the data leaks. We have the NBC data leak that occurred prior to back in 2025, prior to the trial. And the judge appointed a special master to do an investigation of everybody to see who did it, an internal administrative investigation. That investigation included talking to me or getting me to sign an affidavit and agree to certain things and hold material and not, whatever. Everybody involved in the case was required to do that. Then they made a determination of who did it, and they wrote a report, and that report was filed under seal. It's still sealed. So the court, apparently, has a very clear idea who did this data leak for NBC News. That's one thing. Then, back in January of this year, I got contacted by Ada County Sheriff's Department, and they said we're investigating criminally, not the court, not the administrative investigation, but the criminal investigation. We're doing a criminal investigation into these data leaks to NBC, and we'd like to talk to you. And I didn't respond to them because I don't respond to stuff like that. And then within a month, Ann Taylor wrote me for the first time ever since the plea, and said, you can talk to the police about whatever you need to talk about to discuss to help their investigation. In order to do that, I would have to violate work product rules and attorney-client privilege. So she was inviting me to violate attorney-client privilege to talk to the police. The proper thing to do in that case would be for a defense attorney to say, hey, don't talk to my experts, talk to me. You don't talk to my experts. You talk to me. And I know that because I contacted about 3 or 4 defense attorneys who I work with and said, what would you do in this situation? And they're like, there's no way in hell you'd be talking to me.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Especially given the fact that as an expert, you're looking at a specific area of a case, and there's probably a lot more that you're not necessarily involved in. And so it's not the right way to handle it. Dr. Turvey, thank you so much for joining me.
And thanks to Donna Rutono and the Crime and Justice, and also Fox News as well. Please go show some love to the channel. Show some love to her. Drop a like, subscribe, and leave her some hearts in the chat. And that's kind of interesting that he says, now, the courts have known for a long time who the evidence leaker is. Now they're actually going to be held accountable. We exposed this a long time ago. Click on that link, get it in your history, save it to a playlist, check it out. The evidence leaker and the self-made patsy. You know why everybody this whole time thought, until Brent Turvey said this, everybody thought they don't know who the leaker is yet. Oh, they've known. We've known. There's a reason why they didn't want anybody else to know. It's because it's self-made patsy. Shh. Chords. Come on. All right, we're going to do some live calls if anybody wants to hang out and chit-chat and let us know what you think about the topics in this episode tonight. Here's the link for you if anybody's interested. And we'll hang out for a few if anybody wants to chit-chat. By the way, I'm going to be heading over to the lounge. We are back at the lounge. I'm going to be heading over to the lounge. Going to be playing some Truck Simulator. So if you would like to join some open road and some Spotify music as we're hitting that road, making deliveries, come on and join us over there at the lounge. We're back at the lounge. EvilleCJ's lounge. That is. What's up, Jeremy? I am too, man. It's like I'm saying, if anybody just joined, you joined in the middle, you joined after the intro, definitely check out the intro because it's a huge day for me because my feelings absolutely flipped from 150% to minus 150%. Like that. Can't believe it, man. This whole time since the day he was arrested, I've completely backed her, even to the naysayers. And today I'm like, whoo, what? What? Your own attorney The one, it's like what Turby says. She was literally standing up in front of the courts. Literally standing up in front of the courts claiming that her client was innocent, that she couldn't. We've worked on this, we've brought in extra help, and we still have yet to see the connection between the crime and my client. Like, all the times, right? We already know it's definitely wasn't the defense, right? Because number one, all of the leaks were showing that Koberger was guilty. I mean, why would the defense you know what I'm saying? So that doesn't make any sense. And then also, the courts have known for a long time. They've known for a long time. Don't you think with what the prosecution was putting out there before the trial, before the plea, don't you think that the prosecution would have frickin' leaked if it was somebody from the defense? Hey, Ashley Banfield, don't say nothing. Just say from a source inside the investigation and let them know. Guess what, guys? I got the hot scoop tonight. I know who the leaker was. Oh, you know how many views she would have got? Come on now. She would have. That would have took her to heights she ain't seen yet. Let's be real. It would have took her to heights she ain't even seen yet. It didn't happen. Two major reasons why you know it's not the defense. When I first heard anybody discussing how the leaker could be part of the defense, I'm like, are you frickin' serious? You can't buy common sense at the corner store, you know? Only if you could. Do me a favor, bro. Take 5 minutes, go walk down to the corner store, look for the common sense. It's in a can. Yep. It doesn't matter how much it costs. Doesn't matter. Just get some. If you can't afford it, hell, I'll give you the frickin' money, right? I'll pay for some common sense. Like, come on. Couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. It's a weird day, man. It's a weird day. Because now I know from this point on, it's completely different with how I feel about Ann Taylor, with how I feel about the defense. And it's the first time, because ever since the plea, I've told you guys this a couple times already, ever since the plea, I've sat here and gone the whole time, there is no frickin' way I can understand how anybody would ever take this plea deal until today. Because I can see somebody getting cold feet because their own frickin' attorney is pretending in front of the courts, in front of the public, in front of the live streamed hearings. The attorney is pretending to do and be about this, and here in the long run, she's not even testing evidence that can show that it wasn't me. She's not including me because she doesn't think, maybe he just, you know what I'm saying? Maybe he just needed, instead of like leaving him alone in his cell because he's having mental issues, why don't you spend some time, right? Like, what about going in there and talking about soccer? You know what I'm saying? Like, open up. Maybe he just, the dude's obvious. You saw the stuff that he was posting on his, what's that? The visual snow thing. The dude obviously was, he was being hurt from people for a long time. And sometimes people like that need you to, like, spend some time. You know what I mean? Like, if you wanted him to help, maybe you could have approached it in a different way. You know what I'm saying? It almost seems like she was just like, we can't deal with it. This takes too much time. We'll just leave him in his cell and we'll ask him if we need to ask him something and we'll update him. And I mean, that's just what it sounds like. What's up, Gerald? Updates on David? We'll be having a David show coming up, I believe, this weekend. Or if not, we'll be discussing it on our Sunday morning show, the latest true crime weekly updates. We get to stuff that we aren't able to get through throughout the week, and we have more live calls as well. There is some updates. Court date changed because of the amount of evidence. There is some stuff to get into. We'll be doing that this weekend. But yeah, so many questions. Had them for the longest, but man, it's a crazy day. It really is. You know, you hear this stuff and you're just like, how was it never tested? I mean, it makes sense. I can see why somebody gets cold feet and is like, look, I don't want to die. I don't want to die by getting shot at. Who knows, man? It's just crazy. The Sheath exposed, the barcodes and blood evidence or lack thereof, explains and exposes key evidence. Crazy shit, you guys. All right, thank you all. We will be having another episode, I believe, tomorrow night. Not positive, but we will be here Saturday. We will be here Sunday, and then I got a whole nother batch of shows coming the start of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and so on. So we got a bunch of different cases we're going to be talking about as well. JP, Micah Miller, Stephen Smith, Alec Murdaugh. Hold on, let me get it. I got the list somewhere. Where did I put it? It's like 6 or 7 different cases. And then obviously we're going to be talking more Idaho 4. We're going to be breaking down, Rosie and I, Saturday. We'll be breaking down the Brent Turvey interview. That was like 2.5, 3 hours long. And we're going to be breaking that down. And each one of us have got a lot to say about that episode. So shout out to Rosie. Definitely sub up if you're not, and come back and hang out with us. Not sure of the times yet. Look for notifications to come out tomorrow, whether we're going to have a show last minute tomorrow night or whatever time for Saturday. So I'll have those notifications out probably around 1 o'clock Central, 1 p.m. Central or so. So in the early afternoon, midday, just swing by the channel, hit the live tab, see if you see because YouTube isn't putting us in the algorithm, obviously, because we've had a lot of breaks here in the last probably a year almost, but we're back. We're trying to get in there, so you might not get a notification. So just come back to the channel early afternoon, click the live tab, see if there is a live tab, hit the notify me, and save it to your playlist or come back. Definitely check out the links in the episode. And also, if you're not subscribed to the lounge, please do. I'm going to go ahead and end this show. Thank you all for hanging out, being here, supporting, commenting. And we'll go ahead and hit some phone lines up on the next episode. And then also Sunday, we're going to have a couple hours dedicated to StreamYard live calls. And basically, if nobody knows what that is you just click that link. It's like a StreamYard panel. Not that we're not going to have panels, but it's a way for people, just like you're calling in, and all you have to do is click that link. in there. It's real easy. So we'll go ahead and do some more of those. And the cool thing about our shows on Sunday and Saturday is you can talk to me and Rosie at the same time for those live calls. But most importantly, I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Thank you so much. This is the realest reporting of all media sources, because I'm just going to give it to you raw, no chaser. I'm not here for clicks. I'm not here for attention. It's just about reporting the right way with respect and with real information, not Sheriff Nanos is out. No, we told you a couple nights ago. Nope, they're sending it to the Attorney General, and they should, and that's what they should do. But share this out to your socials and friends. It's the easiest way and the free way to help us out. Hit the like, subscribe, and come on back for the next one. We'll see you at the lounge if you want to hang out over there. Here in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so, we'll be hitting the open road. Come hang out if you'd like. Listen to some music, see what's going on, and we will see you on the next one. So thank you so much. Appreciate you. Love you guys. Stay safe. And have a beautiful night.